All right, welcome to the March book club discussion of Acts of Forgiveness. Let's see, we'll clear up by Maura Cheeks. I am very excited to talk about this book because, first of all, it's as I was telling Jim before I started recording, this is probably the one of the best books I've read this year so far. I think just the approach that the author took to even take the bold step to talk about reparations in a fictional sense was it was something different. I didn't really know what to expect and how that would look. And by the end of the book, like it brought forth a lot of questions and thoughts that I didn't think I would really have. And so as we always start, I like to start with like my star rating. So I would give it like 4.5 or 5 stars. I'm still on the fence about it, like I always am, because star ratings are hard, but I'm definitely going with five. I'm gonna go with 5 stars. You all sometimes convince me to change my rating, but right now it's 5 stars. Ask me at the end of this, it'll probably be different. But does anyone else want to share what they rated acts of forgiveness or like a feeling it made you feel if you don't do star ratings? And if you don't want to unmute yourself, you can put it in the chat too.
Oh yeah, you did it. Go sit it. I'm sorry. I gave it a five as well too. I really enjoyed it. I think as much as it was about reparations, I think forgiveness on a deeper level was another topic that I really enjoyed while reading the book. So that's my rating.
Okay. I do like that you made that point. I do want to come back to that, just like the concept of forgiveness and how that looked from character to character. And it was very situational as well. Anyone else?
I don't do star ratings, but I would probably rate it close to a five. I really enjoyed it, and I love the family history aspect the most, I think.
I did love like getting to know the family. I feel like the author, like it's like a timing thing, like how much time, how much space in the story that you put, like that you dedicate to like the background and getting to know the character. Because sometimes it can be way too much. But I think More Cheeks like gave us the right amount, gave us a good understanding of the family. And I think sometimes where authors get it wrong is they give us too many family members to get to know. But this one had the right amount of family, the right amount of background. So I agree with that.
I'm on the 4 star. I really like the premise of it. Um, I I I guess I may have just been looking for a little more. I don't know, maybe tension. I think there were the switch from neighborhood to the house on, what was that, Loreno Street or whatever. But overall, I liked the premise, and I thought that it seemed very feasible in the explanation of the reparations, and that the government would have all kinds of criteria that you'd have to do. You couldn't just go pick up a check. So I liked that, and I liked uh, Willie too. So I do, it was about a four star for me.
Yeah, and I think that's like a really good thing that you started with, like just as far as like the concept of home, and what
Hmm.
home meant for the characters, as well as accessibility to the Forgiveness Act. So I think like most of the tension for me was buried in like the pursuit of
Hmm.
claiming,
Hmm.
yeah, like just like actually getting the funds and the reparations. Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where most of the tension lied,
yeah.
for me. Uh, Betty, do you have a star rating or I don't mean to call you out.
Yep.
I thought you did. But I didn't want to go on if you
Yeah.
wanted to speak.
I don't really have a star rating. I did like the book and I read it in only a few days and I never got bored. But I probably would put it around like a five or a six. Um, but yeah, and I thought that it was easy to go in between like the stories, and I really did enjoy, though it was sad of her learning the history of her family. I thought that that part was really interesting, and it kind of made me think about. I wasn't on a good dirt discussion, but I did read it last month as well, because in thinking about the methodology and how they kind of framed the narrative and told the story of that. And also because I live somewhere now where there is something going on with like reparations as far as a task force. So I was like, oh, this actually seems very difficult. So I wonder what this jurisdiction is gonna do. And is this something that actually is feasible? And so I don't know. So it was interesting to think about that because of the context of where I stay now. So, but yeah, I liked it. And like I said, it was a really easy read.
Yeah, I think that that's another thing. Like it was an easy read. Like it was easy to conceptualize, in my opinion. Like, okay, like these are things that Black Americans have expressed that they would like to see as like a form of like acknowledgement, like slavery was bad, slavery did happen, and like this is probably the only group of people within America who haven't like there hasn't been any peace made. And so it brings me to the question of like, is it too late for the government to try to right that wrong of slavery? Because as we've seen in the book, like um all of the criteria, the things that they had to do in order to even claim that they are descendants of slaves, like it is almost impossible for everyone to do. So, like, do you all think that like we could see a forgiveness act, or is it too late?
Well, we're definitely not about to see it right now with this administration. I mean, and also too, I read April Ryan's. I don't know if she has more than one book, but she wrote a book. I don't know how long ago, but she talked about how in her time in the White House, how with every president there came this moment where they would have this discussion about whether or not they were going to apologize for slavery. And of course it's never happened. So it's like the fact that this conversation, I guess, is acknowledged and comes up, but no one has ever got to that point. So I think that's why in the book it didn't feel feasible to me. And I'm like, this just seems very unrealistic. I could never imagine a US president saying the things that President was it Jackson or Johnson?
Johnson.
Johnson, I can never. It's hard for me to imagine a U.S. president saying the things that she was saying and actually apologizing and then providing any type of compensation. Though I thought the compensation was way too low. But one of my friends, he was like, "That's fine. That's a lot of people." I'm like, "That's not a lot of money when you think about slavery and the wealth gap and stuff now." Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't even know if I responded to the question, but. Oh yeah, definitely don't. I don't see it happen. You see it on some like localities, like in I forgot the city in Illinois, Evansville.
Hmm.
But even then, I don't know if it was like an apology issue, but they tried to provide like some forms of reparation specifically tied to housing. But nationally, it's hard for me to think that that would ever happen.
Yeah, I think that it's too late. And I kind of agree with you. Like we are already in the book, there's a female president, which like they like it's so hard for us to get a woman in charge. It is so hard. So she already has that component where it's kind of like unbelievable. And then like her speeches and how like heartfelt they were. Um, it's like, will we ever have a political figure in a position, like in that specific position, to make a grand change? Like, could they do it? And I kind of agree with your friend though. $150,000 is a lot for every single Black American. But I think like the most realistic part of the book was how chaotic it was. Like it wasn't fully fleshed out. Like once people started to claim, like started to like submit their paperwork, like it was so backdated, like everything, like they weren't prepared for what they were promising the Black American people. So I think that that part was true, but I like to my original question, I do feel like it is a bit too late. Like I don't want like I hate to be negative or think that it's impossible, but it does like the more we keep moving away from that specific time period, like it's easier for America to kind of be like, eh, well, what's done is done type of thing because it wasn't immediately fixed. Does that make sense? Like they didn't immediately,
Yes.
yeah. Because like it makes me think of like 40 acres and a mule, right? Like like Black people are always promised things from the American government that they never receive. Like it's just always like, okay, we're gonna give Black Americans this, or we're gonna try to rectify and make things right by doing XYZ, and then something always falls through, just like in acts of forgiveness. But anyways, aside from that, um, so like, were there any characters that you all specifically like feel like you related to the most? And if so, why?
I like Seb. I like her brother. Um,
Hmm.
he seemed to kind of keep his distance from, a lot of things until the what was it, the protest or whatever that he went to. Um, but I liked his. I don't want to say pessimism, but it seemed like he kept a, a distance from what she was going, what she was going through. So I like that, and I like how his conversations or interactions with her daughter Paloma was it? Yeah. So I liked him. I liked him.
I I don't know how I really felt about the brother. And I think it's just because like he represented the gender roles within the siblings. It was just like she was required to go back and give up her dreams of being a journalist in order to support the family's business. But he was
Hmm.
able to go on and pursue all of his dreams and get his
Hmm.
PhD and do all those things. And
Yeah.
even just like the way the mom would talk about him being too young or like still had time to find a wife and fall in love. It was just like he was a coddled character. Like he was
Hmm.
able to have
Hmm.
freedom, but she wasn't able to have her freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. And even the business, even at that younger age, that he really had, he didn't have the interest in it that that she did, and he never really meant to pursue it. And then she liked it at when she was younger. But I just thought, even with that, there was a distance from the family business for him.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't I I think you can see that in certain family members that there's the one who may um just be outside the circle, kind of, sort of.
I don't think that I specifically like see myself in any of the characters. So I'm the oldest of three girls. And thankfully, I could never envision my parents putting that pressure on any of us to make us give up our dreams, almost like out of guilt, like kind of guilting her. And even though she had shown the interest, he basically could have built her into like the leader of this company. He shunned her off. But then when push came to shove and he allowed everything to fall through, he like forced her back. But I also, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, I couldn't see myself just giving in and like how she did. But I also know that expectation would never be placed up on me. And even in how like her dedication to figuring out their lineage and connection to slavery, I see at least one other sister or both of my sisters, us being dedicated to that together. So their family dynamic is just so different in how I grew up. And I think it makes me feel like judgmental toward her parents, but also kind of judgmental towards her. Because I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, so I don't feel like I found the characters, I found her interesting. I really liked Paloma. I liked the mom, but I don't really see myself in any of them.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I can't see myself just walking away from my passions and even just like the guilt trip of it all. And her dad was like, "Well, tell me about those ideas from when you were 13." Huh? I'm like 30 now. Why are you asking me about ideas I had for the business when I was a child, when you didn't have an interest in me being in part of the business? So like I agree with you on that. Like I don't know if I could see myself just walking away to commit to the family business, but knowing like how they were brought up and just like the move from a predominantly black neighborhood to a predominantly white neighborhood and just like all of that experience and just seeing like how much of her father's ambition and drive to keep the family business alive, like it's almost like this is the only like security that they had. And it puts into like perspective like when people have conversations of like it's very rare that black families have anything to pass down to one another, and it's kind of what we said last month during Good Dirt, because we were talking about how like a lot of us, we don't have family heirlooms, we don't have anything to pass down. So like as far as like the conversation of having a home and then also having the family business, and how she kept reiterating the home, like their home address, like it's just like these are the things that they do have, so like they have to try to preserve them. But honestly, I don't know, like it could be seen as selfish or whatever, but I think it's like how Alicia's saying in the comments, like you want I wanted her to also walk away from the family business and choose herself. And it's like black women hardly get the opportunity to choose themselves. And so while I was reading, I'm like rooting for Willie to just kind of walk away, but she was not walking away. And I can understand like she's devoted to her family, like she's always loved her family. She was very proud of her family's business and what they came to be as a child, even though she was ultimately pushed out of the family business. But I don't know, like I couldn't see myself in any of the characters either, but I could empathize with Willie's choices and Paloma's choices and like their mom's choices and just like the representation of black women in the story in general. Like I could really sympathize with that. And I have a soft spot for Ludus just because like we're talking about a conversation of forgiveness and like family lineage and not considering the people who have been adopted. Like I think, okay, I'm about to start going into a different part of the book, but just like that scene with Paloma getting in trouble in school, and it's like you're asking people to think about their legacy, and you put like, oh, here's all this money, but the only way you can get it is to prove to me that you are black. And Ludus is like, I've been black my whole life, but I don't know anything about where I come from. So it's so much to talk about in the book. So much to talk about. But anybody else have any characters that they related to or like feel strongly about?
I guess I have a question. What about the Paloma's absent father? Um, I found that, interesting that I could, I guess, see it at the time, maybe, but it seemed like he still, lived wherever she lived. And over the years, and she kind of touched on it, that there were times in between that she thought about reconnecting with him, and that Paloma needed a father. But
Hmm.
I would, it's just an interesting dynamic to think, she left that alone, especially with her understanding of her own family and what that meant to her. And it seemed like there was, that she allowed that void for her daughter.
So I have a lot of thoughts about what, like that choice, like the way that that was written, because I feel like on the surface, it's like just another representation of how a person can be blocked from getting their lineage, right? So
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
you have Ludes, who is completely adopted. We don't know who her biological parents are. And then we have Paloma, who is she has her mother, but she knows nothing about her father's side of the family. So like this is common. But then it's also like there are a lot of absent Black fathers, and that's just the reality of it. And just like it also creates a conversation about like men's choice to be involved in their kids life, and
Hmm.
how they feel like it's optional, like even like as much as it was a one night stand for her, it was also a one night stand for him. And so
Hmm.
like he should carry that responsibility. So I feel like it represents so much, like the responsibility of raising a child, and how that looked for someone specifically like Willie, who was career driven and did not have like she didn't want to be a parent, but it was like a lot of things in her life were putting her in positions that was not what she originally wanted. Like, yes, she loved Paloma, she took
Hmm.
care of
Hmm.
her, she raised her, but it also like created a structure for their family dynamic. Like it kept, I feel like Paloma's existence kept her, like she was still connected to her parents, but it really bridged them back together after her move from New York back to Philadelphia.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like leaving that open for so long, um in Paloma's life, like, oh, like not really giving her like the truth behind who her father was. It's like
Hmm.
if I was in her shoes, like how would I tell my child, my 13-year-old child, oh, I slept with someone for one night and you were born. Like that's a really tough conversation to have. Like how do like especially if the conversation isn't, then you get into the conversation of like sex and how babies are made. Like you're like there's a lot of like conversations that are had within that one conversation of like, well, who is my dad? Where is my dad? And so I don't know, leaving that open for as long as she did, I feel like it was a long time, but it's just like when is the right time? Like when.
Right. So I guess the part of it that, maybe from Willie's position, but I wonder about Palomas, especially, in the with epilogue when she's older. Does you, does that question, stick with you throughout your life, opposed to, what kind of where it ended at 13, or whatever. I don't even think she was that old when it ended, but just you, does she want to find, and it seemed like she'd always had that interest. And um I just wondered, would Willie say, and not to say that she did, but okay, here's who he is, and understanding that void in Paloma's, like, especially with I could, well, it the circumstances is written the way that it's written. But I was just thinking, with the, knowing where he lived and knowing where he is, and he didn't seem to move, and it, would at some point you say, I'm going to go over and in essence kind of give it another shot, or you know, Paloma doing it herself somewhere over the years. So, but I thought it was an interesting dynamic that you know um, that was left kind of unresolved and didn't you know have any real and maybe that's what I when I said the tension, that to me that was one of those parts where I was like, well, have her go over there, and maybe he slams a door in her face or whatever, but
Jim wanted some drama. Jim.
yeah,
I thought it did say in the epilogue that Paloma did like go to his house, but she just didn't approach him. And she just talks about how I'm not good. It's Jared that basically he became
hmm
her father,
right,
really felt that void.
hmm
So,
hmm
I mean, I understand that the other person was biologically her dad, but he never wanted to be her dad. Like he saw her mom's pregnant belly and rejected her. So maybe that's why she didn't feel, as connected or felt this strong need, other than like curiosity, probably, to really try to connect with him.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think like it's symbolic of like rejection and longing. Like he already rejected her when her mom was initially pregnant. He rejected her when Paloma was born. Like he has consistently rejected her, but that doesn't take away like this thought that she has in the back of her mind of like, who is my dad? Like I know where he lives. I know this. Like I
hmm
know like very basic information about him, but like he doesn't want to get to know Paloma. So it's just like I think it's like a part of the conversation of like your lineage and like where you come from. Like there are a lot of people in the world who they know only bits and pieces of about where they come from, but they don't know everything that they should know or that they should rightfully know. Like even just when Wilhelmina and Jared were like looking for their like just getting back to their roots and like trying to get those census records and like just
hmm
having access to that information. Like sometimes it is very limited for different reasons. And so Paloma's reason is her father doesn't want to be a part of her life. And so like they don't have any additional information to give her or for her to know. And it just kind of stops there. But I don't know. I think like that's just a feeling that does not go away. Like if I didn't know one of my parents, and I think I see this like in a lot of like media, like when there's a single parent household, like you're gonna have that curiosity, like Betty mentioned, like, okay, I do want to know about this person, especially
uh-huh.
when you're surrounded. And if we think about it, like Paloma is surrounded by like predominantly white kids that come from two-parent households that are a bit more wealthy than she is. And so like she's seeing all of these other dynamics of what should be the norm and like feeling conflicted in that way. So then like she's always reminded that, oh, I come from my mom, but I also live with my grandparents. Even when she was having that conversation with her friend, she's like, no, my grandparents live with me. So it's just like this very strange family dynamic that she's trying to make peace with, and trying to make sense of, even though she knows like other people like their family isn't set up that way.
hmm
I kind of was a little bit troubled with because I do understand that he didn't really give Paloma's dad didn't really make an effort, but she was willing to forgive like her father. Why wasn't she able to like forgive, the baby father and try to build that bridge for her daughter?
Are you saying like why didn't Willie?
Yeah. Why wasn't she able to like forgive her baby father and try to build, a relationship with him for the sake of their child? Because, you know, Paloma not knowing her father was really a huge struggle for her in
Mhm.
the book. And I just thought that that was something that could have been, you know, sorry, my son's in the back, that could have been worked on, because, we were still, the book was about reparations and trying to make some form of adjustments to all the sufferings that we did in the past. And he or she has like this opportunity to make the relationship better for her daughter, and she just was like X.
Yeah, I agree. That's how I saw it too.
See, for me, I'm seeing it as like you can't force somebody to play a role in their child's life. Either they want to do it or they don't want to do it. And for him, he did not want to do it. And so I think in Willie's mind, she was like, well, at least I had the support of my parents. So she isn't really alone. Like she isn't having to like take on the responsibility of being a parent by herself. Like kind of like if we think about that idiom of it takes a village to raise a child, like it's like, okay, well, I still have a village. Like I'm not solely doing it by myself, but like I think like just like trying to like take him to court and make him like be an active father. It's just like, is it worth all of that? Is it worth all of is it worth like getting the law involved to make sure that Paloma knows her dad, even though her dad has made it abundantly clear that he does not want anything to do with her? Because like it would be nice, like, hey, like you should have a relationship with your daughter, but if he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to.
Right, and that can just end up being worse for Paloma. I feel like a lot of like people have to make that decision and try to like make relationships work and stuff work for kids when in the long run the kid probably would need even less therapy if they all if they had just went ahead and like separated, because I don't look at it as like she didn't for like it wasn't the opportunity for her to forgive him. It was like something that happened one night, and twice
Right,
he he re
right,
he rejected her. And
Mhm.
so it's just like, and she doesn't know anything about him. So it's not like she has this context that, oh, he could be an amazing father. All she knows is she could be inviting somebody that's a bad influence, like forcing somebody into her daughter's life that's not even a good influence. And even going to court, that doesn't make him be an active father. That could just maybe be getting child support. And I'm assuming if him saying he didn't want a child, it probably means he financially didn't have it to take care of a child either. And he didn't even try to offer any reasoning as to why he didn't want a kid. He just said, I don't want it. And I feel like with a lot of people, because he's not the person who has to carry the child and physically be there, it was very easy, unfortunately, for him to say that. And maybe she could have put up more fight, but what for? She doesn't know him. And in the end, I feel like, I mean, Paloma seems like she turned out pretty well.
Mhm. I agree with Betty because I'm just like when she went back, she was like his house was filthy. Like
Right.
he was not fit to be a dad. He was not fit to be a dad. And so like I don't know. Like she was doing okay for herself without him being there. So hi Nia. It's okay if you didn't finish the book. It's still really good. It was really good. So you should finish it. But right now we're just talking about Paloma's dad, and their relationship that's non-existent and just the impact that had on Paloma growing up and Willie's role in his absence. But so now that we've talked a lot about Paloma, and what she represents in the book, even though I don't know what I was expecting in the epilogue, but I didn't expect that huge shift where it's just like, okay, now we're just gonna focus solely on Paloma. It was just like, wait, what? Most of the book wasn't like Paloma was there, but it wasn't just like Paloma, and then the epilogue is just Paloma doing great things. But I guess it's like to represent how the family tree or the family has evolved over time through Paloma, and now it's Paloma's turn to be at the center.
And
Um,
it's
But
also
I would have liked for Tada, I would have liked for them to just talk a lot about Willie's next steps. Since after the reparations, what did she decide to do with her life?
I was gonna say the book also kind of started like that though with the quick story about I'm a you know what, I'm gonna write the people's name down next time. Is it Marcus?
Granddad, Marcus.
uh, about the grandpa trying to get the house and selling the stuff to not get evicted, and that was when the mom had just got adopted. Because that was very quick too, to the point where when it went into the next section, I had to go back and figure
Y-
how are these characters related to these characters? Because again, I was reading it pretty fast too. So I guess
Me
it kind of
too.
started that way. And I think, yeah, with Willie, and the only thing it had in the epilogue, it seemed like she just kept working there, which was sad to me. And maybe if they had at least, explained that that was what she felt was like best and she was happy. But I'm like, dang, she got the money, but she still just kept working there. Like we don't know if she ever tried journalism again and tried to do something on her own.
It's like, what's that? Erasing the sun. What happens when a dream's deferred? Like, does he just drive in the sun? Is that how it goes? Dang. Okay. But it's basically like, like when she was working, when she first started working at the construction company, and she kept trying to submit things as a journalist, and she just kept being turned away. It's like, how much rejection can one receive until that completely dampers their spirit in their pursuit of their dreams? Because that's what we see for her character. It's like, well, I'm here. And then she has her friends around her telling her, like, well, you should be grateful. You have the support of your family. You're working for the family business. Like, you seem to be doing great. It's just like, it's very easy for people to get stuck in a cycle that they never wanted to be in. So, like, even though, like, she wasn't able to pursue her dreams, and the same way for her mother, like her mother wasn't able to pursue the dreams that she wanted, like as an interior designer. Is that right? Like she didn't, like she wanted to be an interior designer, like she had an eye, but she couldn't really pursue that dream because she was so committed to the family business. And then we see the same thing for Wilhelmina, and then we get Paloma's character in that fast switch up in the epilogue where we see that like she's not working for the family business or even anything close to the family business. She's now a playwright. So it's like not really like generational like progression. So we have each generation doing something a little bit more for everyone to achieve their dreams. I don't know. Y'all know I process the book. I'm processing the book in real time, and it's me running through my thoughts and making sense of it. But that's what I'm thinking. Like just like we see through each generation how things change. So we see Marcus, the granddad, getting denied the GI Bill and fighting, basically like serving the community food in order to like make money to keep his home. And then Max kind of internalizes that as his son and is like, I don't want that to happen to me. And so like he gives his all into this construction company. And then he has these kids who grow up seeing like the success of the construction company and how much they devoted to that, and like how cool it was to see all of these well-known people come to their home for their parties and their saloons, and then they go on to try to pursue their dreams. But you have one child who pursues his dreams and then another child who almost pursues them. And so just like it's just like it's a generational story um of how the family becomes to be who they are and just get better with time. But I think like for me, like in my opinion, like I feel like without even without the Forgiveness Act and that money, that family still would have made the progress that it did. Like I feel like Paloma still would have became the playwright that she was going to be because it took so long for that money to even reach them. My brain is churning. Did you all have like any like what did you all expect of the Forgiveness Act when you went into the book? Like what thoughts did you have? Like how did you think that was going to unfold?
I don't know if when I started reading that I knew it was going to actually um, happen.
Mhm.
That was a part of the book. I think I read the summary, but I will say how it unfolded because I uh, do work in government affairs and public policy. Definitely wasn't surprised that it was a whole mess and wasn't thought out and was like very bureaucratic versus actually getting people what it is that they need and deserve. So I thought that was very much representative of government.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did not I was unsure like how much of the Forgiveness Act was truly going to play in the story and if it was going to pass. I was just like, because in the real world, I'm just like it won't pass. It's too much of it's too much money that the government doesn't have. And so like even when they do finally get the money, it's like they don't even get the full amount.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So she did all that traveling, all that digging, all that history for just half a chance. Yeah, it was too much for me. And I just felt like, you know, it's the money that they put, granted the act is supposed to show some type of forgiveness or some type of acknowledgement to the true issues that we dealt with as slaves. I mean, racism is still here. So, what is the reparation really trying to bring back for us or justify for us? Like, there are other ongoing issues that still stand out.
Yeah, like it's almost like hush money. Like, okay, here you go, 150K. Just shut up about slavery. It happened. But it's like 150K is like a life-changing amount of money for most people. But we see in the book that like the people who actually need it, they don't have the means to travel and go to the South to get these records and prove that they are descendants of slaves. It's just like it's not accessible. Like these people are already struggling and you want them to do an extensive amount of research that a lot of people don't even know how to do or who
Mm-hmm.
to go to. And then imagine me getting to the point of finding my great grandparents and then the records that I need, the family who has the records don't even want to release it. Like that's so frustrating and upsetting because it's like I'm getting very close to the money. I'm getting very like just chasing money. It's dangling a carrot in front of impoverished people. That's what it felt like. And I think Moore did a really good job of like showing that comparison, like that class comparison within the Black community of
Right.
like her ability. Like everybody's not able to just get off work and fly to the South and stand in the line all day and extend their trip if they need to. Like not everyone has that flexibility and freedom in their day to be able to do that.
Right. So at the end, did the president, she started a new agency or something to help
Mhm.
assist with that, understanding that it was way more bureaucratic and complicated than it was intended to be. Um, I I think part of it is I think in that sense that it did seem to follow a realistic bureaucracy, but if it was going to happen, it'd probably happen some way like that. That it's not just going to be you're going to open your account tomorrow and the money will be there. Um, and that there'd be some criteria that that was used. I thought that the president kind of understood the difficulty and that the classism that certain people could go and spend the time and resource. But she opened that new department or whatever it was with to help people get this information that they needed to get the money. So
Because then with that change, like she started to base it off of the census records, and who had identified as Black over the past.
uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
And so, like when you said that, like not like just waking up with it deposit in their account, it made me think of like stimulus checks. Like everyone, no, don't laugh. Don't laugh. But for real, like it made me think of the stimulus checks because
Right,
people didn't wake up with just the money in their account, right? So
right.
they had the means to do it, but it's just such a lump sum of money. Like you can't just deposit that amount of money into people's account because the stimulus checks were based on like your household. Like they
Mm-hmm,
were basing it off of like if you had kids, like it wasn't like very strenuous, but it's just like for the Forgiveness Act, they were making it so it was impossible for Black Americans to receive this money. It's like,
mm-hmm,
yeah, we're putting this effort in, but it's like, are you all really? Because why wasn't this fleshed out? Why wasn't
mm-hmm,
this made
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
with the consideration of accessibility and
Right,
knowing that a lot of records for Black Americans don't exist? It's like, oh, show me your family Bible that's been passed down from generation to generation.
right, right,
Hello,
right.
everybody does not even have a family Bible.
Yeah,
What are we supposed to do
yeah.
with that? So I don't know. I feel like it's just such a large lump sum of money. Like they had to make it difficult so that they couldn't like it they wouldn't have to pay everybody. It's like, oh well, you weren't able to prove this. And it's just like, what do I need to prove? I'm experiencing racism every day. You see me, I'm Black. I don't know. I don't know, like just I'm really like really love the premise of this book and just like the conversation that it does create around reparations because I feel like any other conversation about reparations is done in a very nonfiction setting, like very legal, very law focused. So if you put something in fiction format for me, it's gonna make me think critically about it. So I did love them.
And I think what maybe she could have done more, but I don't know how like in the weeds and how interesting it would be in like a fiction book because when conversations about reparations are happening now, there's usually there's a task force established that takes all of this time to try to figure these things out, but we don't really know the premise of what happened beforehand as to how they came up with the process that they did. And I think that again, this probably is making it too like boring and nonfiction, but in talking about how the impact of slavery has impacts Black people financially to this day. Like I've seen data that says that even if we didn't have Jim Crow after slavery in it, there still would be a giant black white wealth gap just because of the fact that slavery existed for all of that time. And she also doesn't talk because it's just about a check, but reparations can come in so many different forms. Like I said, in Evanston, theirs is mostly around housing because of redlining and how Black people were kept out of certain neighborhoods. And she also doesn't really talk a lot about like the healing component because it's more than just saying, "Oh, we're sorry." But I don't know, as an author, how deep you want to go into all of these different things where it gets too dense and it's not as interesting. But I do feel like there was some room for her to do a little more like education around the concept of reparations and in talking more about like the impact. Because even if you are a richer Black family now, you probably are the first person or only a couple generations in where you are have rich people in your family. I don't know too many like Black families where they can say, "Oh, my great granddaddy was rich." Like, and that's why even when you see the situation that Willie is in, and when we talk about the sandwich generation, where it's hard, where even if you are a Black person who's doing well now, you usually are having to take care of your family, your parents now. So I think that there were some things that she could have went into a little bit more detail about to offer like some education on reparations and why they're needed. Because I'm definitely a proponent um, of reparations, and I know before I don't think it's too late. I think that there are people who would tell you to move on, but I think that even our great grandparents or grandparents, if we're fortunate to still have them alive, would like an apology. And even if they don't know that they would like it, if they received it, I think that they would deeply appreciate it. Again, I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think like exploring other forms of reparations, like that's still possible. But I think like a financial, like large lump sum of money, like, okay, this is going to fix that wealth gap. I feel like that is severely delayed. Like to what I was saying earlier, just like there have been a lot of empty promises given to Black Americans. And so like even if we just get the government to deliver a formal apology for the enslavement of Black people, it's just like who will that touch, and is that enough? Because we still have like the lingering effects of slavery and racism like running rampant within the country. And so even just like with that, and like the idea of the Forgiveness Act and where we are now in this country, and the things that Trump is like removing as far as civil rights, like it's just like how, like, where could it be, where could that conversation be had, where could those changes be made? Like, is it just up to like the state level and like local governments to make that amends? Because that's what it seems like. Mm. Okay. We're starting to get close to the end of the discussion. Are there any other themes or characters or like thoughts that you had while reading this book that you want to discuss? It can be quotes, it can be anything. I try my hardest not to like talk all the time in the discussion because I know that I can. But like for real, like if you all have questions or things that you want to like dive deeper into together, the floor is yours.
As an author, I liked how she wrote the speeches. I thought those were really well done, almost all of them. Then when the president was talking,
Mm-hmm.
um, I thought those speeches were really well put together and um, well spoken, and just seemed like it was really a leader, at least, giving that. So I enjoyed the speeches and how they were all written.
I think the author, she studies a lot of politics,
Mm-hmm.
um, and systematic injustices. So I think like she has that expertise. Like she spent a lot of time studying studying it to like really write it out well because it was very really believable. It
Mm-hmm.
was transcribed from an actual speech
Mm-hmm.
that we would expect from the president.
And I'll say I thought something that was interesting was that she intentionally didn't put a time on it. Like we don't know in what year or like the context of when this was taking place. So I thought that was really interesting. Of course, as soon as I saw a woman president, I'm like, oh, this is a long time from now. But I thought that was interesting. And I feel like I said, even though it was really sad in Willie and learning about her lineage, I feel like it's very realistic. And unfortunately, the story of so many um, of our ancestors. I know we've had those discussions about, oh, is everybody so light skinned because of this or because of being white or Native American? So that's why I'm like this. I know there's so many people's story, unfortunately, that the women in our family had to endure that,
Mhm.
and which is why also then makes the conversations about colorism like so fascinating and complex when you think about why a lot of people probably do have fair skin.
Yeah, and I think like her whole process of like digging, and yes, like the rape, I feel like that's in every historical fiction book I've probably read that like someone was raped. Um, and like then like like the whole conversation of house slave and field slave, so then we get into that. But I think one thing about like all of her digging that really stuck out to me was that there was another woman in her lineage who was a journalist and a very successful one. So it's like even though she didn't know this person until she started digging, like I just thought it was interesting to see how like journalism has always been in her bloodline. Like it didn't just start with her. And so then we get to see Paloma also becoming a writer, like her own kind of writer, but like we still see like the way that the family enjoys that. Oh, Alexis, you can just unmute yourself. You don't have to raise your hand. We very chill in here. You can just say what you want to say.
So my husband wants to say something. He was because we were listening to the audiobook.
Mhm.
So my husband was listening with me, so he wants to say something.
Okay.
It was a very good book. Someone who's from Mississippi and who definitely love history and pay attention to words very a lot. Uh, I do feel like this book was a book of an agenda of pushing the liberal people being liberal, and being from Mississippi, seeing that and just paying attention to history. I think more black people were more conservative. And when I say conservative, I mean having their own ownership of land and township.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of black people in Mississippi, especially in the Delta area, some of them actually were sheriffs and they was mayors. And like I say, it was a good book, great book. I love the writing. I just push it. I do see the emotions behind it, and a lot of people don't know the trickery of words. Me and my wife, we discussed a lot of times on how sometimes the last name was throwing people off by of the spelling, and
Mm-hmm.
it made me think about my own family and wishing that we actually trademarked our last name because it threw people off because people didn't know how that last name had more ties to the land than anything. But like I said, it was a good book. It just, to me, I just saw more emotions behind the Forgiveness Act because I see a lot of people still want reparations, and reparations is good. But if we're not responsible now for basic stuff, how can we be responsible for that type of compensation. So that's what those were the things that I was seeing. They were like, that's good, but let's be realistic. Who's actually responsible for money now?
Yeah, and I think that brings into the conversation of financial literacy. So I feel like you touched on two things, just like namesakes, right? And how people would change their name, like we seen in the book, like in their lineage, he changed his last name because he wanted to be very far removed from his owner, which I can 100% understand that. And then we get into like financial literacy and like the management or mismanagement of receiving funds. Like we can't expect people who have never had a large amount of money to know exactly how to properly handle it, to invest it into something bigger for themselves, or to even dream bigger when there are so many other aspects of their life that kind of hinders them from being able to do that. And that could be like pure ignorance, their education system, or for me, if I receive that money, I'm like, okay, let me pay my debt off. Like it's not, like my college debt. Like let me pay that off. Like there's other things that they have to tackle, and it's like that's not like that $150,000. I think it kind of goes to what Betty was saying earlier, like that form of reparations. Like it is nice, but there are other form of reparations that we could kind of take because like money's not gonna absolve everything that Black Americans have experienced like during slavery and after and still to this very day. So like the money aspect, I 100 agree. Like even just the way at the end of the book when they didn't receive all of the money at one time, I think that is a good way to like say, okay, like let's see what they do with this first half of the money, or just as an individual what you do with that first half of the money, and then when you're able to access the second half, like will you be different? Like should the government, like I think it brings it to the conversation like you're just giving out money, but like, are you going to improve the education system? Are you going to improve all of these other things that hinder Black people from achieving what their white counterparts or other people achieve within this country? So I think that's a good point that you brought up. I really do. I really do.
And that's part of the again the Tulsa, Oklahoma, the community, the home that is so imperative that because I again I'm my background is in education. I graduated from D Jackson State University.
Mhm.
But what I also realized that this colonial education system is from kindergarten all the way up to your doctoral, and it's all talking about the same thing. So we're not, and the biggest reparation we can ever do, to me, as a father and a husband, is to, and I'm not trying to get off topic. I'm just trying to
No, you're fine.
put ourselves in a new perspective of learning. Like the true education is going to have to start at home.
Mhm.
And the guy that I loved the most was Malcolm X. And if we're not getting that passport, we're gonna be limited to just the driving license. And what I'm saying, we gotta employ ourselves with more learning at home and not be scared to have foreign conversations and understanding. So that's why I say like the reparations is very important, but we gotta have those conversations in house, and because the public education system it's not gonna give us that. It affects black and white. So that's why it's called public, because we're gonna treat you as a beneficiary and we're gonna give you the bare minimum. We are Rockefeller said it best. We need more workers.
Mhm.
So I feel like, that was again the book gave us pieces, but it also pushed that agenda to erect the emotions and not get to the realism of like what's like, y'all, let's go back to have some real in-depth conversations, not from an emotional standpoint, and really look at like, y'all, when they call you a United States citizen, what does that really mean? Because that associates everybody. And and I'm sorry, I'm gonna let this the one last thing go because me and my wife was just talking about it. Most of the times we don't even understand what civil rights are
Hmm.
because 90 to 95% of the crimes, and I say crimes with quotation, are civil. It's only become criminal when the state gets involved because that's when they want to get paid. So those type of things are very important because, and again, that's to me, that's financial literacy because we don't even understand how money moving around. Because literally, that's why those officers and those different lynch mobs never did get crucified during the 1960s and 70s and even now. Because literally everything is civil.
Hmm.
And I think we need to do more deeper thinking on how we are approaching this system, not from an emotional standpoint, but since they're gonna play the game of civil, let's play the game of Dr. John. I mean, not Dr. Johnny O'Brien said, let's get to the civil rights, and he SIVER when he was talking about that everything is about money.
Hmm.
So those were the things that I kind of picked up, and just listening, like how we can change our thought process from emotional standpoint to see how the United States is actually out here conducting business. That's why reparations probably won't happen because of the financial literacy does not want to happen really.
Yeah, like I feel like you're bringing up a lot of good points that I forgot about while I was reading. And one of the first things is like we can't expect like this one book to tackle all the things. Like it is fiction, and I think that's what I really enjoy about fiction is because it does introduce us into these conversations. Sorry, I got birds if y'all can hear them squeaking. But it does get us into like beginning to have these in-depth conversations because I wasn't really having this conversation before reading Acts of Forgiveness or even doing research of my own. So I think it's just like the book is meant to introduce us to this topic, to be able to have these in-depth conversations with our loved ones and inside of our homes to like really start to think and like, although yes, we are human beings, we do have emotional reactions, but also to be aware that there is a logical approach that we should have to it as well. And so like I feel like these conversations, like even just having a book club like this to really dissect the book with other people brings us to the place to be able to have those much needed conversations and to get a better understanding. So even when we speak on the fact that at like the learning starts at home and it's like some kids can't learn anything at home because their parents don't know anything, so then it's a very vicious cycle. And I say that in all people, not just Black Americans, just people in general. Like you can only learn so much from the adults in your life before you start pursuing this need to know, this knowledge or this understanding of the world around you, beyond what your parents or like your immediate like adults can teach you inside of the home or even at school. So it's just like it's almost like the positioning, like you like Paloma in the book, like she wanted her child to be in a school that she thought was good because her parents put her into that school that they thought was good. And it's just like it like you can only get so much education before you start pursuing things on your own and try to figure out things on your own. So like I don't know, like that's why I'm like a very very big advocate for fiction that requires you to think beyond what you already know. So a lot of like literary fiction, like Acts of Forgiveness and historical fiction, that pushes you to do more research outside of this fictional narrative because this is just like a this is one isolated family that is fictional, but it is very possible if they did provide us with a forgiveness act that went into place. Like this could happen to one specific family, but everybody's family and everybody's family dynamics and all people are individualistically different. So like their pursuit, their education, their management of money, like what they will be at peace with when it comes to like the acknowledgement of slavery. Like it's very different. It's case by case, but we have books like this that allow us to open our minds to begin to think more critically about how this could work or how it could not work. And I think like even if a politician got their hands on this book and read it front to back 30 times over, and then was like, okay, let me put the Forgiveness Act into play, it has already like put into perspective like those questions that need answers, like how would this be fulfilled? How could the Forgiveness Act be successful? So it doesn't answer all the questions, but it does bring forth new questions that we can answer on our own. But I do love all of your points. I really do. I appreciate you jumping on. Does anyone else have anything they want to mention before we jump off? And then I'll let you all know what we're reading next month. I do thank y'all so much for joining this month. I feel like this was a really great book club pick. Like sometimes our picks don't bring forth a lot of discussion or like thought-provoking discussions, but this was like a really good one that will stick with me. And I love when a book does that. And it's usually our book club picks that do that for me. But if no one else has anything to share in regards to acts of forgiveness, or you think of something later, you can put in the Discord. But next month we'll be reading Colored Television by Danzy Senna. I don't have the book on me right now, but it looks like this. And it's like a satire. If you read Yellowface, um, it's along those lines of like what it means to be a mixed person in America, like in the media in Hollywood. And so it'll be like kind of humorous, but also thought-provoking. So yeah. Yeah, Nia, Yellowface is one of my faves. I love R of Kwong. So it's gonna be nice to read this one. Because the author is of Afro and Mexican descent, and she is a biracial woman, but she is a best-selling author, and I've only read good reviews for it so far. But if no one else has anything to share, I'll see you next month if you choose to read color television with us. If not, I did announce the other two books for May and June on my Instagram. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank
Very
you.
much for allowing me to have an input.
Of
Peace out.
course. Bye.
Bye bye.